Extremely Forward Soundbites is brought to you by PeterFunAboutShop.com. In this episode, music from returning favorite God Mode Yo, as well as Kara Lorden's soothing tunes. The trio complain about aging, and Pete shares 4 decades where they're the best writing tips and tricks around. For questions, comments, suggestions, or to get involved with the show, visit ExtremelyForward.com.
Scopes. Yeah, that's the homie B-Boy.
Yeah, they say that being an artist, a producer. That gave me confusion. Cause all of y'all just think y'all really got it, y'all don't do this. Man, y'all ain't in the studio, y'all just think you're cute shit. With the post on Instagram, that's not how I do this. I'm laughing cause y'all about to lose it. Man, all of y'all got these things so confused with. Yeah, levels that we on, I do music. All of y'all be petty, man, all of y'all be stupid. Man, I got sauce that I make. I've been in my kitchen like a grandma every day. Man, she really taught me how to cook it, how to weigh the right amounts up on the scale. Man, that's for real. Cause I got daughters freaking knock a fucking scale. Man, I just want the big checks, want a mil. Maybe just a couple cause my artistry is real. But all of y'all just wanna kill. Yeah, you try to for a piece of bread, a place on that hill. Y'all don't want a house, but I know that I will. I got confidence, man, that's motherfucker. Yeah, they say that being an artist, a producer. That gave me confusion. Cause all of y'all just think y'all really got it, y'all don't do this. Man, y'all ain't in the studio, y'all just think you're cute shit. With the post on Instagram, that's not how they say that being an artist, a producer. That gave me confusion. Cause all of y'all just think y'all really got it, y'all don't do this. Man, y'all ain't in the studio.
That's some get up and do it music. You gotta hustle, you gotta do the work, that's the way.
Whoop, whoop.
Booyah.
We actually play a lot of God Mode stuff.
It's because he's Dutch, and the Dutch are the best.
Yeah, it's smoking weed, maybe, Dijkstra.
At lots of things.
Aren't you Dutch?
I'm English.
But originally.
I'm English now. Now that we've all self-identified. What are you, Gabe?
I'm the guy reminding everyone to touch us on our like button. It only takes a second, costs you nothing, but really helps us out. Plus, if you subscribe and hit the bell button, you'll never miss out on an episode either. So do it. Do it for freedom. Do it for America. And do it for me.
A deft deflection, sir.
Most deft, most deft.
Well, someone's going to say those things because the two of you forget.
I've outsourced my memory to you, Gabe. And my conscious is in a server in Iceland. And my emotions, I've outsourced those too. Right now, there's a little boy in Bangladesh and he's crying.
Also, I can tell everyone listening that if they have any feedback, requests, questions, or answers to our questions, if anyone wants to share their tips or to play along, they can either post it in the comments or they can get it directly to us at show notes at extremelyforward.com.
You're such a pro, yo. Not just a pretty hoe. But it's time to get on with the flow with the mo, so, you know.
Sandy's on top form today.
Well, Gabe's job is to say all the things that has to be said, and my job is to keep us moving swiftly along. The only one whose job I can't quite figure out is yours, Pete.
I bring raw animal sexual magnetism to the show. You know, I don't have to do anything. I can just sit here. I'm like a trophy man.
True dat.
But what's up in the world today?
Well, I'm at the London Book Fair this week.
I'm very highly educated.
Ooh, tell us about
You
it.
know, I'll do a proper report back, I promise, at some later date. It only starts today, so I'm not sure what to tell you yet. We have to get to the topic at hand.
Old dogs.
And new tricks.
Yeah, we're sharing some of the best tips, tricks, techniques, wisdoms, and resources we have collected over our collective careers for writing and writers.
Why should anyone care what we think?
Because we're old?
Ancient, darling, ancient. I was already tired of life centuries ago. I was sitting with my good friend Oscar Wilde on his deathbed, and he told me, Peter, one of us has to go. Me or the wallpaper. Turns out it was him. But I was already ready for it then.
Bullshit, you're a pup.
Thing is, it's clear people believe any old nonsense by any old charlatan. We've already established this in a previous episode when I bitched about writers being exploited by the cottage industry preying on their insecurities. And yet there are some legit sources of bona fide value out there. And in this episode, I'd like to name them. so that anyone who's out there maybe listening and who's aspiring to be a writer or just is a writer but want to improve their craft, then they can maybe, benefit from it.
Awesome.
Round 1. The best free resources for writers.
Libraries. I love them. It's a quiet, neat place to go sit and work with tons of research on hand, and you're surrounded by inspiration. It's the perfect trick. Just go to the library right there.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a really good one. You don't have to rent an office or spend money at a coffee shop or go on a retreat or whatever. The reference desks in a library is the perfect place to go sit and work. That's a great one. I wouldn't even have thought of that. The lectures of Brandon Sanderson on YouTube. He is one of the foremost contemporary authors of fantasy and a really nice guy, and he taught some writing classes at BYU, and he covers a lot of ground. So some of his guests, he has some guests on even, and some of them talk about different things like short stories or whatever, and plotting, character, world building, the business of writing. It's all there, it's all gold, and it's free.
What if you're not into fantasy or sci-fi?
Well, then your parents should have drowned you in a bucket. But alas, fear not. No, you see, this is the thing. I think whether you like Brandon Sanderson's work and whether you like sci-fi and fantasy, those lectures are probably the best class on writing I've ever seen or found anywhere. And it's amazing. It's on YouTube. It's free. Doesn't matter what genre you work in.
Also on YouTube, Dan Wells' video on the 7-point plot system.
That is a good one. That is a good one.
We'll include all these in the credits if you want to get them in writing.
Yeah. That's based on the Star Trek role-playing game. You start at the end, then you do the beginning, then the midpoint, 2 twists and turns. Excellent method for getting a basic plot down.
Oh, I have one. I like the author interviews on Writer's Digest. I find it reassuring and inspiring to know what other writers go through. So that's just maybe me, but yeah. There's also some interviews with best-selling authors. It's older interviews, but it's on the site called writerswrite.com/interviews. That should take you to those. It's pretty cool.
Those are cool. The internet as a whole is a great tool, isn't it? I mean, you've got podcasts and blogs and YouTube videos and websites. It's great.
Yeah, drop some of your favorite resources in the comments. For real, the more we empower each other, the better. So drop some of your favorites in the comments. Round 2, the single best writing advice you've ever received.
I've read a lot of interviews and bits where people speak about plotting and like planning the book and outlining and being like very particular about knowing where they're going up front. And for years I tried to actually do the same thing and it just didn't work for me. So I heard about those 2 different kinds of writers, who are those who are big on planning everything up front, and they actually call them architects, and then they structure out everything in like meticulous detail. And others just have a premise, and then they kind of just go from there. So they have this idea, but then they wonder as they're telling the story, they're writing it, and it kind of naturally and organically happens. And they call those types gardeners. And either one is okay. You find which one works for you, and you go for it. You don't have to plan. You can if you like, but you don't have to. And that really liberated me, because I'm definitely more of a gardener.
That's cool and very true. Yeah, the gardener and the architect. My single best tip of all time: don't get it right, get it written. When I first started many centuries ago, I'd rewrite my prologue 7 times, and I'd never get to the rest of my book because I wanted the prologue or chapter 1 to be perfect. And it's actually a useful mistake to make when you're young, because it will teach you a lot about craft, and perhaps it's an important and necessary part of your early learning curve, but it will kill your production. So whether you have a plan or just a premise, whether you're a gardener or an architect, you just put your first draft down, Give yourself permission to suck. Don't worry about getting every single sentence right or filling every plot hole. No one has to even see your first draft. You just write straight through, put it down. You get the whole thing out. And then you can go back and you can tweak and you can twerk and you can tuck in the second draft.
That's great. That's really great.
Speaking of drafts, my best one is I like to write my first draft with pen and paper. So then when I put it into the computer, it's already one round of revision.
That one's a bit arcane, but I've heard it before. And I think it's if it works for you, then by all means go for it. Yeah.
Round 3, the best writing books.
Let's start with what many consider boring books, but that I think of as the most powerful, magical spell books. These books are essential, foundational, and you need them if you're going to be serious about writing. And I know that computers are fabulous and instant and connected, and the internet has everything you need, but there is something about having physical books and flipping through them and picking them up and digging into them that's different. So I say a solid dictionary or two and a thesaurus.
Oh yeah, I also have I actually have a rhyming dictionary. So it's like it's the ends of the words and the way they sound.
Yeah, those are great. And then the manuals of style too. The Chicago Manual of Style is a biggie, as is the Oxford Manual of Style. So words are your instruments, the very tools you use to create your magic. They are to writing what reps and sets are to bodybuilding, and what light is to photography. You have to have a small library of the basic reference books, I believe. And you need to play with your dictionary. From time to time, pick it up, look up a word that you didn't know, or even a random word that you do know. Just read the definitions, see how the words are put together. You've got to get command over the language. And it's the same thing with the thesaurus. Nothing can stimulate creativity or an idea more than looking up a whole bunch of synonyms for a word. Words are your fundamental power, so you have to get very, very well acquainted, and I believe this.
Would you use the Chicago or the Oxford Manual of Style?
Okay, so first off, what are the style manuals? The style manuals, I think of them as almost, those books that teach you how to drive a car? The style manuals are almost like that. They give you the rules of the road. So you have all these words, and those are in the dictionary, and you know how they rhyme because you've got the rhyming dictionary, and you have all these alternative words and synonyms in your thesaurus, and you may even have a specialist dictionary of legal or medical or theological or historical or whatever terms, and that's great. But the manuals of style, the Chicago Manual of Style, the Oxford Manual of Style, this is how you deploy those words. So there are systems for putting words together and using them in practice. So it's stuff like, when do you use a single quotation mark and when do you use a double quotation mark? When do you use a dash and when do you use an M dash? What are the rules of punctuation? When do you use italics? Do you write out numbers or do you use numeric symbols? What's the proper way to index or reference? How do you treat illustrations? It's all kinds of stuff like that. Now, I'm very fond of the Oxford one, but in practice, I've seen the Chicago Manual of Style being used more often in publishing. I've actually seen it on both sides of the Atlantic, so yeah, I'm not sure. One last recommend here. It's not a classic or a reference book, but it's one of the ones I have in my little library, and I really like it. It's a book on grammar, and it's for grammar phobes. And it's written by Patricia T. O'Connor. It's called Woe Is I. And it's like a super simple guide to the rules of grammar for all of those folks that didn't pay attention in English class.
Okay, cool. But what about books that teach writing, the craft of it, I mean?
Yeah, well, first off, you can do the 415 method for writing.
Great. So for listeners, that would be the system Pete discussed in episode 4, if you need to look that up.
Again, I hate to be sounding like I'm just this classical old teacher at the boarding school, but I have to bring up certain classics. Strunk and White's Elements of Style, E.M. Forster's Aspects of the Novel, Orwell's 6 Rules, which you can find in his essay Politics in the English Language, Ernest Hemingway on Writing, There is something to be said for all these older classical texts. You really shouldn't start breaking rules until you know them and understand why they're there.
I always heard show, don't tell. It's one of those things you hear a lot, show, don't tell, but I never quite understand what that means.
Yeah. So the basic idea behind show, don't tell is that you should keep things active. And you should always show things that are happening to your character in the moment. So don't tell it like you're recalling it, or you are telling it after the fact to someone else. You've got to show how it happens while it's happening. Whichever tense you use, it's not about tense, but it's about that things actively happening to your character. Your character is going through stuff. And you've got to show that rather than reflect on it afterwards. If you're having trouble with that specifically, there's a little book called Show Don't Tell by Sandra Girth. That's excellent to help you overcome trouble if you're having trouble with that specifically. And there's also another book called The Anatomy of Prose by Sasha Black. She can help you deal with some of that. The thing about that is it's generally good advice, but it's not necessarily doctrine. I find that sometimes telling is an interesting way of getting the story across rather than showing. So, whatever you do, just do it deliberately. Show, don't tell as a general rule of thumb is very good. But a lot of my stuff is actually telling and not showing. And, that's fine if you're doing it deliberately. Other good books on prose would be, perhaps one of my favorites, is Techniques of the Selling Writer by Dwight V. Swain. He really helps you to think about how to write sentences and string them together into a paragraph, and then how to get the paragraph strung together and get your words flowing very effectively. Now, he's got a very kind of strict, very formulaic approach, and I don't necessarily advocate sticking to anything religiously, but Swain's formulas are very useful, especially for beginners. And then one last book on prose that I think is great is by the veteran literary agent Donald Moss, and he's got a book called Writing the Breakout Novel, which I think is quite awesome.
I also like those Writer's Digest style books that zero in on the specifics, like 20 Master Plots and How to Bold Them by Tobias, or 45 Master Characters by Victoria Lynn Schmidt. So they have these books and all these different elements like, plots or characters or locations, etc., etc.
Yeah, I definitely recommend going deep into specific elements when you're first practicing, or if you feel you have to correct for your weak spots. But there are some good advanced books on some of those topics as well. So the book Story by Robert McKee, it's actually for screenplay writers, but it's a good one for plotting in general and figuring out how to plot. And then John York's book Into the Woods is a good look at story structure. And then The 7 Basic Plots by Christopher Booker. That's another expert level insight into the various types of plots. And the very best book, actually, the one that I think is the most useful, it combines character and plot, and that is Will Storr's The Science of Storytelling. That's fantastic.
And then Stephen King's On Writing. I like it. It's like a pep talk as well as the how-to.
The dummies guides are also cool. I have ones on romance writing and YA.
Subject specific is also great, and they can be fun. I have one called Police Procedure and Investigation by Lee Laughlin.
Yeah, there's this one called Scene of the Crime, and there's one on poisons and missing persons.
Yeah, those are great fun and good for research. And, you're going to 415 a subject area for the purposes of writing about it. It's not a bad idea to include a biography or two as well. So say you're doing a book about a soldier, pick up a couple of famous soldiers or generals' books and read their autobiographies. They can give you texture that you couldn't get anywhere else.
That is such an awesome trick.
Yeah, don't plagiarize, obviously, but they really, like what is it like in the British Army? How would you know unless you read something from a soldier in the British Army? So, if you read those autobiographies or biographies, they very often relay the feel, and folks who know what they're talking about will resonate. So that's a good trick.
Great stuff.
Yeah, the thing is, there are tons of tips and tricks and free and paid resources, and there's courses and there's classes. And when I was a kid, I spent hours in my room, and I would spend a lot of hours reading and learning and trying the different techniques that are going to solve everything for me and lead to breakthroughs and make me better. And no one of them completely, was the one thing. But together, they add to your craft. And you should absolutely learn and delve into the subject areas. But just 2 additional thoughts, and then we have to run. You must also remember to just read books. I mean, not plot or character or guides or, craft books, just books. If you write fiction, read it. If you're into sci-fi, see what the other guys and gals in your field are doing. You can learn a lot from the good books. Some of these bullshit courses tell you to copy great books, rewriting them like line by line. And sure, it's a fun exercise if you have the time. But also just read them. Read them for the sake of enjoying them. Not all learning is conscious. Some of it is very much subconscious. And good reads, like good writes, don't dig too deep into any one aspect. The magic is in how they combine all the various elements together. Good books are great, but bad books are fantastic. Bad books are the best teachers you'll ever have. I think Stephen King said, a bad book is worth a semester in writing school, and he's not wrong. And then the last thought is similar to what we spoke about last time on Soundbites. All the tools, the trips, the tricks, the techniques, the things are good, okay? But understand you don't need any of them. There is one way, and only one way, to develop as a writer, and that is to write. You can pick up all the tricks you like. You can gain an academic understanding of the most advanced and complicated nuances of character and plot and blah-de-blah-de-blah. Tell your story. Write a lot. The more you write, the better you become. Writing is not knowledge-based. It's a skill. It's a muscle. And you train it by working out. And you work out daily. You need nothing else. You don't need any books. You don't need any courses. If you want to enhance your skills, go for it. Nothing will make you better than doing more. Write a lot. That's the number 1 trick.
And that's a knockout. Next time, we'll look at creating your perfect writing system, and we talk a little bit about Pete's forthcoming book, Mind's Eye Theater. Until then, please touch us on our like and subscribe and notify buttons, comment and share, and do drop your favorite tips or comments in the comment section below. The more we add, the more we all gain.
Next week, bitches.
Me, I'd rather disappear than be lifeless like the sea. Voices make your mind their home. Once they're in, they're never gone. When you feel like a burden, let somebody take it. When you feel like a burden, let somebody take it all. All my life I've been